Okay.
All right. Welcome to Pesci's Recovery Corner. This is a recovery podcast. Today is December 14th, 2021. I'm here today at 12 p.m. PST noon with my very special guest, Robert Sears. Welcome to the corner.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So this is Recovery Podcast. We talk about all things recovery in many different forms, shapes, sizes, and aspects. And let's get right into it. Usually we delve into your past and see what your upbringing is, where you're from, and then kind of just work our way up through what happened, and then later on the recovery portion. So where are you from?
I lived pretty much my whole life until I was 17 in Sarasota, Florida. What do you want me to just like kind of go into my past?
So Sarasota, Florida is where you were born?
Oklahoma, but I lived there for about 3 months, and my memory is fuzzy of those first 3 months of my life.
Mm-hmm. Any siblings?
Nope, just me.
Only child?
Yeah, my parents were 42 and 47 when I was born. They were both deemed medically infertile, so I was a happy accident.
Okay. Well, I must say, and I told you this the other night when we were somewhere amongst friends, I said, you're one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And I mean that when I say it because you're a brainiac. You have, you're very, it seems very educated, very smart. And you've had quite an interesting life thus far. How old are you right now?
26.
26 years old. So growing up in Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah.
Say that 10 times. What was life like in your childhood and then growing up there?
I'm really glad I grew up in like a small town in Florida because people are just like a lot like friendlier there, like there was whenever I wanted to be alone, I could just like leave and go into the woods and like come out when I wanted to see people again.
Sure.
And everyone could do that if they wanted to. So like people were, a lot friendlier than they are out here. I don't know, man. I was always a weird kid, kind of a loner. I had, one friend at a time. I don't know. My parents thought that like I might have some. I might be like really slow when I was a kid because like how babies like can only focus on something for like 10 seconds.
Sure.
Like I would like be able to focus on like one toy for like 10 minutes, and they were like, "Oh, this kid's dumb." Okay.
They assumed you were dumb.
Yeah. But then like I was by the time I was 4, like I'd always just like get really into some weird niche thing. Like when I was 4, it was like I was reading like a thesaurus of toxic plants. For some reason that was what I thought was interesting.
Your family they're educated, correct?
My mom is very educated. My dad's education consisted of being the biggest weed dealer at OU in the late 60s. He was an insurance agent. My mom is a clinical psychologist.
Okay. And so growing up within the house, were you reading a lot?
No. I had a weird reading disability where like I just couldn't track the words on the line very well, and my brain was just moving way faster than I could take in information. So like I was really good at math, but like I never really got into reading all that much. Most of the reading that I've done has been like literature on whatever topic in neurobiology I'm interested in at the time. Like I've never gotten into fiction novels or anything.
Okay, so growing up in Sarasota, was it sort of a affluent area? Was it normal? Was there
upper middle class?
Upper middle class. Okay.
We were an upper middle class family until my parents decided to get divorced in '07, and then the crash hit in '08, and then it was a long time of like, is the bank going to find the paperwork that it needs to foreclose on the house that we can't afford anymore? And they didn't for a really long time. Right. They just lost the deed to the house that they needed to foreclose on. So like, I don't know. After that, things were tight, but like I've never had to worry about where I'm getting my next meal or if I can go to the doctor. Yeah, I don't know. I had a good childhood. My dad was a little bit, a little distant and a little bit closed off, but he was a good dad. My mom, was a little bit too concerned with making sure that I never had to experience any difficulty whatsoever. And that probably stunted my growth a little bit. They should not have been together. My mom and her husband now get along great. Right. I had the good fortune of officiating their wedding. And I absolutely love seeing them together. But she and my dad didn't, there were a lot of yelling fights, but that shit happens for a lot of people. It's not like I had some weird trauma in my past that was like something that I could point to use as a reason for being an addict and an alcoholic.
Okay, so I want to get into that. First of all, were you athletic as a child or a youngster?
No, I was a fat kid.
You were a fat kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did people make fun of you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you get picked on?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Bullied?
Yeah, and it was like more than that. It was just like, I'm a little bit on the autism spectrum.
Sure.
And like there are some really cool things that does for my life now. And I wouldn't change it for the world.
Right.
But like when I was a kid and being on the autism spectrum really sucks while your self-worth is based on what other people think about you. Because there's just like, what I perceive is there's a piece in most people's brains that automatically tells them like, this is the socially appropriate thing to do in this moment. And this is how I'm supposed to act. And it's kind of like this background process. For me, I don't have that. It's a fucking black box to me. So if I want to figure that out even poorly, I have to like rob from the area of my brain that I'm using to think. Okay. It's an active thought process. So like, I was trying to fit in, but I was always trying to figure out actively how to fit in because like my brain didn't help me with that at all. So
were you prescribed Ritalin or Adderall or anything like that as a youngster?
No, not until I was 17.
Okay, but they did prescribe it to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you say on the spectrum,
autism spectrum,
when were you diagnosed?
Never.
So you've never actually gone to a doctor and had them tell you a diagnosis?
No, the thing is like I'm too high functioning to get diagnosed with autism, you know.
Your mom being a psychologist, did she ever throw that terminology around the house?
My mom didn't know. I didn't really figure it out till I was like 20. Like no one really told me. Like,
it's usually around 20 years of age that men and women, they may present themselves in a certain way. So sometimes they'll go get a diagnosis. You kind of figured it out for yourself.
Yeah. I don't know, if you talk to any of my friends, they'd be like, yeah, he's kind of autistic. That's definitely what it is. Like, I don't know now because autism spectrum shows up early, but the thing is it's generally diagnosed in more severe cases as like a learning disability. I did applied behavioral analysis for autistic kids as a job for one point, and there were none of them that functioned anywhere close to as well as I function. You just don't seek treatment if you're functioning well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that's a weird kid.
If you don't mind me asking, at 17, why did you see a doctor to be prescribed any kind of stimulant like an Adderall, or what was it?
Well,
Vyvanse? Or?
yeah. It was Vyvanse.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought about that in a long time.
I mean, what brought you to the doctor to the point where they thought, you know what, we think we need you to
I
take
started asking for ADHD. I started noticing that like I had a severe inability to pay attention at like 8, because like when I was talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'd get the first 3 words of what they were saying,
but then you're just
I would blank out,
space, yeah,
and then I'd get the last 3 words of what they were saying, and I had to backfill everything that they said in the middle.
Sure.
And just respond based on what I think they said.
Mm-hmm.
And I got good at that. But I started noticing there was something wrong when I was 8. And then at 11, I asked for meds for it. But my parents didn't believe in ADHD at that point, which is funny because like my mom was, my entire childhood was basically a housewife. She didn't seek education until later after my parents got a divorce.
Okay.
So like my parents just didn't believe in ADHD, and I'm glad. It's really not. It's probably not the best thing. Like I'm sure there are advantages to medicating a kid for ADHD, but there are also really severe disadvantages.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm at least glad I like got through physical development before I was medicated for it.
Okay, so and then also before being medicated for it, were you ever experimenting with any drugs like marijuana, alcohol, hallucinogens before all that?
Yep.
All of it?
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, like there were drugs that I tried for the first time after I got on ADHD meds, but like I was probably about 8 months into drug use before I sought an ADHD medication prescription.
Okay.
It was
the drug use as in what?
Smoking a lot of weed. I wasn't drinking all that often because when you're 16 or 17, alcohol is the hardest drug to get.
Sure.
A lot of mushrooms. Was starting to get into ecstasy. Yeah.
Did you think the weed was helping you?
Yeah.
It was calming you down, or how was it doing for you?
Yeah, fuck, man. Like, look, when I was 14, I had this thing, right? Like the thing with the mild autism shit. I remember sitting in a room with 3 other people for 6 hours, and just trying to figure out what the right thing to say was. And I didn't say a goddamn thing for 6 hours.
Right.
And I'd smoke weed and that just went away.
And then you could find all the right words?
Yeah, I could just be me. I didn't care what other people thought about me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I can find the right words now too, because I don't care what people think about me anymore.
Right.
But the drugs did that for me.
Okay, so, and this was probably more in your adolescence, like an experimental phase, just having fun with some weed, doing some hallucinogens, like many kids do. Not to say they should.
I mean, like
they do.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not sure for me there really ever was an experimental phase, because.
So were you instantaneously addicted?
I wasn't instantaneously like a daily, all day user.
But progressed.
Yeah, for sure. But definitely from the first time I tried a substance, the thing happened in my brain where I was like, somewhere out there's a combination of substances I can take that's going to fix me. That is the solution to my problem. Mm-hmm. So like, the way I see drug addiction is it's pretty much a drug solution more than a drug problem. So yeah, I'd say, like I didn't know it at the time, obviously,
Right.
but yeah.
It's interesting that when I was working as a counselor, as
Mhm.
like in a rehab, people would come in, and often when I do a biopsychosocial with their therapist, we would kind of go throughout their whole past and talk about when did you first start using,
Mhm.
find about their family upbringing, like the makeup of their family. When did the drugs become a problem? Did you stop doing physical activities? Did you stop doing the things that you like doing best
Mhm.
before you were using? And usually, like they'll say, it became a problem pretty much right away. Like, or sometimes it didn't
Mhm.
become a problem until I started at 13 until I was 17.
Yeah, I mean, so I started using summer before 11th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was, it was definitely immediately a little bit of a problem. It
Yeah.
was a huge problem when second semester I went to a community college full time, and my dad got me an apartment. And I was just like, I'm just gonna
Party up.
yeah, I mean, be high all day, not go to class. I was doing mushrooms 3 times a week for
Mm-hmm.
that 6 month period.
Yeah.
Um, and then the way I did ecstasy was I'd do it 5 times in 2 weeks. And the fifth time I'd come down and I'd be like, I can't smile for a while, can I? And then it would just be I need to take a break from this for a while. Um, yeah, I never got into anything that was super physically addictive. I
So
just
no heroin, no opiates. Were
no,
you more of a stimulant guy?
yeah, yeah.
Cocaine, meth.
By the time I tried cocaine, I'd done so much Adderall that cocaine was boring.
Okay, that makes sense. I
Yeah,
mean, Adderall is like
yeah, and
medical speak.
I mean, I was abusing it,
Okay, you were
pretty
getting
heavily.
Adderall prescribed you, and you were abusing
Yeah,
it.
it was I'd get the maximum prescription, not take it most of the time because I just wanted to be stoned. And
Was it?
then
Was it? Did excuse me for interrupting you? Did the Adderall help you with weight? Had you lost the weight that you
yeah, I'd
said?
already lost the weight. So that was a different thing. When I was 11, I figured out I didn't have to deal with feelings from my parents' divorce if I just buried myself in a family size bag of Cheetos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and between 11 and 15, I became about 40 pounds overweight, and I was working out plenty. I was I had a personal trainer. I was lifting weights. But I was also I had a pretty gnarly binge eating disorder. So it was work out all you want. That's not going to overcome the binge eating disorder. You can't overcome eating, 3,000 calories a time. And then when I was 15, I looked in the mirror one day and I remember the thought clearly in my head. It was food makes you fat and you can eat it again when you're skinny. And um, I started eating, I don't know, maybe 800 calories a day and working out for about 6 hours. And I lost that 40 pounds in 40 days.
So when you say this food eating disorder, was there any bulimia, or were you bulimic?
No,
Okay, so no purging, none of that.
no, not in, that was later. That was well into sobriety that I started
Okay.
trying all the other eating disorders.
How about cutting? Did you ever cut yourself?
I tried it once. It wasn't that interesting to me.
What did you know about it that you tried it? What made you even try?
Had some girlfriends who cut.
You just caught wind of them cutting.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe there's something to it. I'll try anything once.
Okay, fair. So your first attempt at sobriety, how old were you?
Um, my first half-hearted attempt at sobriety
Mm-hmm.
was 19.
Had you gone to treatment?
No, and I've still never been to treatment.
What made you decide that you wanted to get even half-hearted sober?
I fed my girlfriend at the time too much acid. I had to call my mom, and she was like, "You need to get sober." That lasted 57 days. Then I went to a rave, and I was like, "I'm doing ecstasy."
So you attempted to for 57 days while living under your mother's roof?
No,
Were you living on your own?
I was at college.
You were in college. Yeah. So you went 57 days because mom had a conversation with you, like,
yeah,
time to clean it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so after 57 days, like with no recovery and motion,
yeah,
you were kind of a ticking time bomb.
Yeah,
just waiting for
sure.
the next one.
100%.
So then ecstasy came across your path, and let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
No mental or spiritual defense against the first
57 days was barely sober. It was like I had like powdered caffeine that I was snorting. I was like smoking.
Powdered caffeine? Who does that?
I know. I was like.
I know who does it. Robert Sears does. That's who.
I was like taking bong rips out of tobacco. Just like seeing how much of a nicotine buzz I could get.
So you were still seeking a buzz,
absolutely, all the time. It was
minimal stuff that's not really supposed to be like.
It wasn't
categorized as something to get you high.
It wasn't 57 days sober. It was 57 days of seeing how high I could get on nicotine and caffeine and nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you did ecstasy, and so what was it? Did mom did that last long? What did you?
I was high all day, every day for the next 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doing anything and everything?
Mostly, my baseline was about 1 gram of hash oil a day. It was 2 if I actually wanted to get high.
Mm-hmm. And being in school, were you even performing?
I mean, yeah, I had switched to a psych major because you can kind of do a psych major while you're high because you can just like not go to class and then binge amphetamines during finals week and maintain like a 3.0.
Amazing. Okay. So, so you had that part figured out. Now, then what? Why did you, when did you get sober after was it after 6 months?
Yeah. So after 6 months, I got sober, and actually, tried. I did some stuff. I worked steps to the best of my ability.
Wait. So now this is on you. You're the one that brought up steps.
Mm-hmm.
Steps in a 12-step community?
In a 12-step community.
This is in Florida?
No, this is out here. I moved out here when I was 17. My dad moved to Oklahoma. My mom lived in LA, and I had to choose between the two. Mm-hmm. It was a pretty easy choice.
Okay, so how did you get introduced to that community? Why?
Just Google,
Google. Okay, so you were what, 20 years old?
Yeah, I had just turned 20.
So you were going to some meetings and just learning about the 12 steps.
Yeah, and I went through. I did that to the best of my ability, but 20 is around the time bipolar starts to come out. Mm-hmm. When if you have it, and I was in one long manic episode for that 5 months. Okay. There's a pretty severe limitation in connecting to God when you kind of think you are God.
True.
Yeah.
Many people with bipolar
mm-hmm.
do think that. They go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have psychotic manic episodes. It's just there was a feature of my mania is there's an overwhelming feeling that whatever I think is the right thing to do is the right thing to do, mm-hmm. and it feels so good that it can't possibly be wrong.
Okay. So again, you still had never seen a doctor that diagnosed you with bipolar. This is something you assumed you have?
No, I didn't know I had it at that time.
How did you find out?
So after that 5 months, one day I, went to a meeting, and it was at capacity. We were limited because the members of that meeting, a bunch of treatment centers had gotten in a big brawl in the parking lot. So they limited our capacity.
Okay.
And I got there too late and got turned away. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to a weed shop. It was, like I said, there was a limit to how much actual recovery I could get into because I was in one long manic episode.
Okay.
then I went on a series of sprees for the next 3 months.
Using.
Yeah, mostly smoking a lot of weed, but I don't know. I remember there was one day that I woke up on Tuesday, looked at my phone, and it was Wednesday, and checked the bottle of Ativan, and it was empty. It was gnarly. It was
Prescribed Ativan?
yeah. It was an old prescription that just hadn't
A
timed out.
benzodiazepine.
Yeah,
You just happen to have.
yeah,
Hadn't been using it for a minute.
Yeah.
You know what? I think I should take some of this.
yeah.
Okay. So, but still, how did you come to the conclusion that you were bipolar?
About a month after I got sober, I got sober and I was really, really depressed, uh, like pretty much sleeping all of the time, for the next month. And then, one day at about, 5 a.m, after I'd been awake for 20 hours, I just started like singing and dancing for no reason. And then I was up for the next 2 days, not really needing to eat or drink water. And I went to a doctor and I was like, yeah, that's bipolar disorder.
Okay, so you were diagnosed.
Yeah, so I'm diagnosed and treated for bipolar disorder.
Did they give you medication?
Yeah.
Did you ever delve deeper into it to see where it originated from? Like, do you think that bipolar disorder originates from trauma? Because before you said you don't feel like you.
No.
This is a chemical imbalance?
Yeah,
Okay.
This is purely a chemical imbalance. It's it's not like a personality disorder or something. It's just literally like, if my brain doesn't have something stabilizing in it, it'll tell me you need to sleep for 2 weeks and then not sleep for 5 days and then sleep for 2 weeks and then not sleep for 5 days.
Okay, so what about suicidal ideation throughout your life up until this point?
Yeah, so when I started having suicidal thoughts when I was 11, around the divorce. I started, holding a knife to my wrist.
Did divorce fuck with you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And I mean, once I got older, I was like, God, my parents shouldn't have been.
You were happier when
Yeah.
they got split up.
Yeah, but when you're 11, you don't have the wherewithal to fucking understand that.
Right.
It's just like, so what if they're fighting every week? That's clearly what a relationship is, because I've only ever seen one and it's theirs. So I had no idea that it was a bad relationship.
Now, with finding out that you had bipolar disorder, being prescribed medication, this is in sobriety, correct?
Yeah.
So at this point, you weren't doing drugs that could have messed with the medications and defeated the purpose.
Nope.
Now, were you on Adderall?
Yeah.
So in your sobriety at that time, you were being prescribed Adderall. You weren't abusing the Adderall anymore.
Nope.
Correct. You were using it as directed. And then on top of that, now you had bipolar medication and that was helping you?
Barely. It took 4 years to get bipolar medication stabilized.
But when you first found out you had bipolar, was it in your mind, Robert's mind? Like, there's some people that they get diagnosed with a mental health disorder. It'll mess with them. They'll be, not me. I don't want to take the meds. Or I'll take the meds and then they'll take them for a little while and then they'll stop taking them or they either forget, they don't think they need them, they'll become their own doctor. Several things could happen.
See,
how did it hit you?
Here's the thing: is the reason, especially a lot of people with bipolar disorder don't want to take the meds, is what a manic episode feels like while it's good until it turns scary.
Right.
At least is imagine the highest you ever were on speed, but you're also not at all shaky. There's no side effects.
Right.
It's just in terms of euphoria, it was the best feeling I ever experienced until I got to a point of just a long, stable peace. But, until I got to a point of a long, stable peace, it's, you just don't know that exists until you know it exists. So I get why a lot of people don't want to take their meds, because that feeling is the best feeling in the world when you don't know that there is a peace that's attainable.
Mm-hmm.
That peace won't come through medication. That peace is something that I found through spirituality. But I got really lucky because very early on, when I'd start to get that manic feeling, the thought that would come to mind is I'm going to spend money that I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to end up, sleeping with someone who I don't want to sleep with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not going to get out of bed for 2 weeks.
Okay. To be debilitated.
Yeah. So it was like, I very quickly learned, manic means do stupid things and then become severely depressed.
Because of the stupid actions?
No, just because of mood disorder.
Okay, so it's part of the roller coaster ride.
You always crash after the mania. Mm-hmm. And I'm a rapid cycler.
How long does the mania sometimes last, or has it lasted?
3 to 5 days. Okay. It's 3 to 5 days, and then the depression is a week or two. So, it's I'm a rapid cycler. Yeah.
So you talked about spirituality, and you feel so. Did you stop in that 4-year time? Did you stop taking your bipolar medication? Do you still take it?
Yeah.
And if let's say you didn't take it, what would happen? Would you fall apart?
Probably.
Has there been times in your life where you stopped taking it for a period of time to test to see?
Actually, yeah, I did once at the recommendation of someone who I trusted who should not have made that recommendation to me.
Somebody told you to get off your meds?
Yeah.
Why?
Just because they were like, around, like 2 years sober, it was worthwhile to check, there are a lot of people who get put on a lot of shit when they get sober, because when you get sober, you're batshit fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a lot of disorders. And they probably don't need to be on those medications. It was maybe worthwhile checking to see if that was what happened, and that wasn't what happened. I'm actually bipolar and I need to be on the medications. Mm-hmm. When I got off of everything, I was like, I was always a little uneasy, but I was fine for like a month or two. And then I went into a pretty severe episode and I had to get back on them, and I haven't gotten back off since.
Okay. As far as the Adderall, you continued to take that throughout your sobriety. At that time, you got sober at 20?
Yep.
And then you got up to 25, 26 years old. You had how many years?
For a little over 4.5.
Okay. So after you got to that point in your sobriety, all things considered, everything that you've named, you also had a stint during that time, a few stints perhaps, of doing steroids.
That was one long stint starting at around 4 years sober. I said like 11 to 15, I had a pretty severe binge eating disorder. 15, yes. I developed all the other eating disorders. Mm-hmm. That cycle kind of repeated itself in my sobriety.
Right.
So I got sober at 20 to 24. I had a pretty severe binge eating disorder alone. 24, I looked in the mirror and it was like, you're disgusting and no one will ever love you. And the solution to that was like, the 8 months leading up to my relapse, what my days looked like a lot of days is like, jab a syringe full of mixed steroids into my ass cheek, work out like a psycho past failure for 2.5 hours, starve myself all day, binge at night, sometimes throw it up. I didn't really like that one that much.
Were you looking at your body and thinking, I'm fat?
Yeah.
Like my belly's big?
I mean, it was, I knew if I see, because here's the thing is like, I definitely had a basis to understand that no matter what shape my body turned into, it wasn't going to make me happy, right? Because like I remember very vividly being 19, looking in the mirror. At that time, I was like 190 fucking diced. And
like shredded.
Yeah. Like like people thought I was an Abercrombie model, like fucking shredded.
Yeah.
I just like, I have an old tennis injury in my shoulder. And so like my right shoulder grows bigger than my left pec grows bigger than my right. And that was all I could see in the mirror. And I thought I looked fucking terrible. No one else in the world noticed.
Only you saw it.
Yeah.
It's usually that way.
Yeah.
I used to, when I was starting to go bald,
Mm-hmm.
I would sit in certain meetings or classroom settings and think that everyone is looking at my bald spot.
Yeah.
Like it's so embarrassing that everybody's got, I need to just shave it all the way bald because everyone sees that I'm going bald.
Yeah. So,
and nobody cares.
So,
everyone's thinking about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it was just like, a good 8 months of like, when I had to figure out which steroids I could tolerate, which was unfortunate because the ones that made me lose weight in the way that I wanted to also made me shake to my core. Like, it's a way that like no amount of stimulants will ever make you shake. It's a twitch.
Yeah.
And like, I couldn't tolerate that. It was just like, I worked too goddamn long to have like some modicum of peace in my life, and my eating disorder can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, but, so the opinion that I've developed over my time using steroids about steroids and sobriety is the thing is like the steroids themselves they just don't have a chemical effect that you can really consider mind altering. Like, it's a little maybe mood altering.
Mm-hmm.
On their own, they're not mind altering. And the thing is, like, I think people who have no desire to do steroids, who are sober, could probably do steroids and be just fine. Anyone who's willing to say like, yes, I am going to harm my body, my heart, and my testicles with these substances in order to look a certain way, is doing that because they think that looking a certain way is going to bring them happiness. And it's absolutely fucking not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere down the road, like I found myself like 8 months down the road of seeking something that is antithetical. Like, I can't seek the body that steroids are going to give me for happiness and God for happiness at the same time. Like, I could understand how someone, with a really strong connection with a higher power could stay sober, and maybe like they're a professional bodybuilder and doing steroids is like literally in their job description,
right?
But they don't think the body's going to make them happy. And
so it's proven, it's known that when people do steroids, it does hurt. It affects the heart.
Yeah,
well as other
bodybuilders are dropping
organs
like flies right now. It's like every pro show, it's like some big name dies leading up to the show.
Okay.
Because
there's a lot of people in recovery. I mean, I've had several conversations with people that are in the recovery space that have gotten sober from drugs and alcohol, that do steroids or that are doing HGH, that are doing tests, that are very justified in the way that they talk about the fact that they do them or that it's okay to do. Some people call it a relapse. Some people call it a behavioral relapse because you're behaving in certain ways because you're doing the steroids and you're trying to enhance the outer image, thinking that that's going to look better. But internally, I mean, we're doing God's work, or at least attempting to do God's work on our own physique, which isn't what God really intended for us.
Yeah, it's that's the thing is like,
if you believe in God,
people who are sober, who are in a mindset that steroids are going to fix them, what's going to end up happening is they're going to seek that to the exclusion of whatever solution is actually going to make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 months down the road, a year down the road, whatever down the road,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to end up at a point where it's like, that didn't work, and they're much further away from what does work.
What about the ones that do it ongoing and don't just stop to the point where they might have that realization? There's some that do it continually.
No, I didn't have that realization when I stopped. I had that realization. Like, I didn't stop and then have that realization.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like what happened. Like, fuck, man, on my relapse, it had like a lethal dose of speed. Like, I looked up the LD50 of the form of speed that I took, and
Mm-hmm.
I took more than that in a 12-hour period. And my blood pressure going into it was like 165 over 100 from all the steroids that I was on. Like, I genuinely don't know how I'm alive.
When you said you relapsed when?
It was about 4 p.m. on March 8th of this year to 4 a.m. on March 9th.
Okay, so for 12 hours, you relapsed because you abused your own Adderall?
Yeah, it was Ritalin, not Adderall.
Okay.
But like, yeah, same shit.
You just took a little more than you actually should have, or a lot more?
No, I took about 20 to 25 days worth of the maximum prescribable dose in 12 hours.
Okay. And then you had a realization, like, I just relapsed, like, this is not good.
Well,
like, I got to bounce back.
Here's the thing is, like, I was at work, and around noon, the thought popped into my head. I was just like, I'm going to go home and snort a shit ton of Ritalin. And I had till 4 to call someone. But it just didn't occur to me that it was a bad idea. In that time, the thought didn't enter my mind that it was, like, there was this very vague notion in the back of my mind that, like, maybe this was somewhat of a bad idea.
Well, for those 4.5 years before, though, was sobriety not comfortable that this thought would just occur to you? Had you not gone through some process to where recovery was embraced and it was like a way of life?
Yeah, absolutely. I had.
You had this thought came.
Yeah. The thought came because I was, you have to do a lot of stupid shit for a really long time to relapse after many years of sobriety. It's not just like sitting around the corner waiting to jump out, but I had spent the last, 8 months, 9 months straight, seeking happiness primarily in a slew of eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact is, like, if I get that far away from a relationship with God, and for anyone who's watching this at some point, I fucking forgot we're recording this. Jesus. For anyone who's watching this, when I say God, and if you have a problem with God, I don't mean what you think I mean, and I know that for a fact because I don't fucking know what God is. God is whatever the fuck continues to magically solve my problems as long as I don't try and solve them myself.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if I get far enough away from that as my solution, then, like, I'm still a fucking addict, and like, the thought pops into my mind that, like, I'm gonna use, and it just doesn't occur to me that it's a bad idea until I do it.
Right.
And then, like, I did it, and like, like, right when you take a hit of some, like, stimulant,
Yes.
And like, you start to feel a rush,
mm-hmm.
and you're like, all right, in like a minute or so, this is really, like, the magic is gonna kick in.
Right.
But like, it's like, I got that feeling where I was on the way to the magic, and the magic just didn't fucking happen. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I was like, well, fuck. So
it didn't last long.
No, because
you were relapsed for how long?
12 hours. Yeah.
12 hours.
12 hours.
26-year-old, 25, 26-year-old guy,
25 at the time. Yeah.
25 that had 4.5 years of sobriety, and you realize within 12 hours, I'm not going the other way.
I realized the first line.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going the other way. It was just like, well, I'm already here. I'm going to keep going.
Okay, so for the next 12 hours, it's just like...
Yeah, but like as soon as I did it, I was like, well, I'm getting sober tomorrow again.
Okay, good. That's good. I like that.
Well, it was just because like the life that I've gotten through sobriety is really magical, and the drugs really weren't. So
I've known you for a while.
Uh-huh.
And I was there during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched you bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you bounced back, it's like we talked. You wanted to continue to be on Adderall.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about how that would look.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me if I was a doctor. I said I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I said you can do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can have your own interpretation of your recovery the way that you
Mm-hmm.
see it. I see recovery in a different sense.
Yeah.
But you decided to this all happened on your own time.
Mm-hmm.
within your own decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You decided to stop being on Adderall.
Mm-hmm.
You went through a process where
Mm-hmm.
I think it was enlightening and eye-opening to you that you can actually like live and function normally in the world without it, and you taught yourself that. You showed yourself that.
Yeah.
Also, you were contemplating getting some more steroids and continuing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think something was coming in the mail and something happened.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was at a point where I really wanted to get want to get off steroids, but I couldn't get myself there because God, I was in so much pain. The thing is, like, I'd try getting off steroids, and then I'd just start like binging and purging 10 times a day.
Oh, so you were binging and purging during that time?
Yeah.
And you spoke of eating disorders in the last.
Yeah. I bounced.
This happened more in your recovery.
Yeah. I bounced back and forth between all the eating disorders, and like I can. What the steroids was like. If I could do a bunch of steroids and work out like a psychopath for 2 hours in the morning, then I could like sequester the eating disorder to that portion of the day. And the rest of my day for sure was worse than it would have been if I were just like not doing any of that shit. But I felt like that was the best that I was capable of having.
Mm-hmm. So it was remarkable to see you get to withstand from doing steroids and getting back into another cycle, to get the Ritalin out of your life, to become 100% abstinent, right?
Well, I mean, like I already told you, I went back on the medication after I went back into school.
Oh, Adderall.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
You did say that you went back on that.
Yeah. No, I'm still off the steroids. I found that, while I was working an insurance job and I didn't have to do really intensive, like digging through literature type shit, I absolutely didn't need to be on ADHD medication.
Okay.
And like honestly, for almost everyone, if they're in sobriety, there are non-stimulant alternatives to stimulant medications that are plenty effective for anything that you might need.
Name one.
Like Strattera. I don't have the option of taking that because I lack the liver enzyme that processes it. So it builds up way too high in my system and it will hospitalize me. Okay. Like in the psych ward. It was fucking interaction with my bipolar disorder and shit. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. Unfortunately, I had to make a decision that, like, like the place I belong is in a university laboratory. And
so what you doing for work now?
I'm in school full time, but I'm also working full-time in a lab at that school. I'm not getting paid to do it yet. That's,
Right.
you know,
But the plan is to become.
I mean, I'm either, if I do private industry, it's going to be something in biomedical engineering, brain science, biomedical engineering shit. If I stay public sector, it'll be pure neurobiology research. Man, I'm like, I'm about to start working in a lab where we're doing some really cool stuff, implanting stem cells into the brains of mice. Doing some really, like, once we can figure out all the things we need to figure out before the process that starts can be applicable to treating humans, like, someone's winning a Nobel Prize for the shit that we're doing. Probably won't be me, but someone is. And a lot of people's lives will be way better. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
You sound like you're doing well for yourself, like you're going somewhere in life finally,
Yeah. After a really, really long time, what's amazing is, like, it's funny. Like, I've been on these ADHD medications for fucking forever. And the big difference in my relationship with them now versus what my relationship with them was for a long time was, I was expecting the medications to solve the problem of, like, me not wanting to do work. It took me a really fucking long time to learn to do the shit that I need to do but don't want to do. Like, 5 years, a really long time. Excuse me. So I was expecting these medications to solve the problem. Now I take them, they kick in, I don't feel them. Like, it's like I take them, and then sometime, like an hour later, it's like it's the manifestation that ADHD still has is, if I'm gonna, like, dig through really dense research or something like that, I have to push really hard to focus. And I can do that for an hour twice a day, and that's all the energy that I have.
Gotcha.
The medication makes it to where, like, I don't have to push that hard to be able to, like, focus on it. Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Fuck, man.
I see you plugged into the recovery community. I see you, taking your recovery very seriously. I admire you. I think you're doing great. It's nice to have you on here today. It's nice to hear where you are with everything. You've changed dramatically and immensely in the last year from what I've seen.
See, here's the thing that changed, right? The thing that really changed for me was, a couple months, the first couple months after I got sober again, like after my relapse, like, yeah, I mean, like, I took things seriously, but for pretty much my entire life, especially for, like, the 5 years in sobriety, I was convinced that I was going to find a thing that was going to fix me. It was going to make me peaceful, calm. I was going to figure out a way to be peaceful, calm, happy, productive, be able to live a good life. And I tried a lot of treatments that no one has access to, I had a psychiatrist, a neuroscientist, like I tried neurofeedback. Neurofeedback's cool. It wasn't the magical answer that I was looking for.
Right.
And then I tried, like spending sprees and shitty relationships and a bunch of eating disorders. I tried all sorts of shit, medical, behavioral, legal, illegal. I tried it all. And at about 5 years, I realized that, like, 5 years after I got sober, 3 months after my relapse, something like that, I just realized, like, fuck, I'm never going to figure it out. I'm never, ever, ever going to figure it out. And the only thing that I could think to do is to kill myself. Like, when I made that decision, I got really peaceful because, like, I just didn't fucking have to do it anymore. It was freedom.
Right.
I couldn't kill myself right then because I had a meeting the next day that I had an important commitment at. So I wanted to give them a week to figure it out. So, like, I would get home from that meeting the next day at about 9. It was around 6. So at that point, it's like, all right, I'm killing myself when I come home from the meeting. They'll have a week to figure it out. So I had about 27 hours to live. And I kind of fired like a shot off to God. I was just like, all right, God, you got 27 hours to fix this shit or I'm the fuck out of here. And he did, it was just like an hour after I did that, I started to get this like nervous energy, like there's a bunch of shit I need to do. I felt really safe firing that shot off to God because I really thought I knew and understood God. And the God that I knew and understood did not have the power to fix my problems. I'd been asking God to do that for 5 years, and he never had. And what I figured out was God will not fix my problems while I have another idea of how I'm going to fix them.
Right.
If I have another idea of how I'm going to fix them, it's just like, yeah, fucking try it. Go run that shit. I don't give a shit.
Right.
The moment that I ran out of ideas of how I was going to fix my own problems that I'd never been able to fix was, the most painful moment of my entire life. But like since then, now that I've really firmly, deeply understand on an emotional level that like I can rely on a level that there's some power out there that I don't fucking understand, that if I just like ask it to fix any problem that I can't fix myself, which I make that determination based on like, if I put more effort into the problem and it gets better, it's my job to fix it. Most of my problems, when I put more effort into them, they get worse, and then it's not my job to fix it. So any of those problems, if I just like ask whatever the fuck is out there that keeps fixing it to fix it, and then don't think about it, it's gone the next day. And it's not like a white light experience, like angels come down for the heavens and strike me pure. It's just like the next day, during the middle of the day, I'm like, oh, I just haven't thought about that, and it's gone. And just like the amount of time and energy that I have back that I never was going to get back,
right?
Because I don't have to fix so much of this shit that I don't have a way to solve. It's amazing. It's the best feeling in the world. And like, the fact is, every ounce of pain that I went through, like, it just hurt to be alive for the first like 25 years that I was alive. Like I was born screaming so loud that child services got called on my mom 8 times for trying to hug me. Like I would wake up and we were in public and just start screaming and she would back away and put her hands up so people could see that she wasn't beating me, and it just hurt that much to be alive all the time until I came to have this relationship with a higher power. And it was never going to get better on its own. And I was never, ever going to figure it out.
That means so
and
much
it was all worth it.
Right.
Because if I get to live this amazing life that I have today for the rest of my life, it was all worth it.
Absolutely. I want to show you what some of the people's comments are here today. Lisa says, "Oh, it's not coming up. Thank you for your honesty. I wish you all the best." Melissa says, "Very familiar. A lot of your story." Brian says, "Wow, that was so well put. The most painful moment in life. Same for me. Then everything changed." And Dean says, "Wow, good stuff." Okay, so this is a really great episode. I really enjoyed having you on here. You talked about so many things, all the topics that we had talked about in advance. I appreciate you like coming out and being so transparent and open. There's a lot of stuff you talked about that a lot of people wouldn't.
I don't know. I think it's like, I got a little awkward and stuttery when talking about going back on ADHD medication.
It's okay.
Because it's just like, I can totally see how people listening to this are going to be like, you're justifying drug use. And like, I don't know. I don't want to give anyone the impression that they can do that when they have another option and it'll be okay. Because like, fuck man, what I can tell you is like, when you're on that shit, it's for a really long time, it was really, really easy for me to say like, fuck, like I've got some extra work to do today, so I'm going to take an extra pill today.
Well, now you know better.
I do.
It's good to have you out here today.
Yeah.
I'm on 4 hours of sleep because I was trying to help a friend that relapsed last night that doesn't want to get well yet. But I love you very much. Thank you for coming to the corner.
Have a good one.
You too. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.